Okay, well, it's a real privilege, Graham, to have you talk to me today. I'm with Graham Ray from a very well-known Rhodesia, Zimbabwe family
Yes.
and farming family, now living in Zambia, and he's building another farming empire here. Some say, but Graham, thanks very much for your time and the opportunity to talk to you about your life and where you are now.
No, you're welcome, Johannes.
Thanks, Graham. Graham, just start off with your family. How did your family end up in what was then Rhodesia? What's the background?
Okay, well, funny enough, my grandmother was born in Shamva in 1910, and she was born on my grandparents, or her side, were miners, and she used to go to Shamva Junior School on a horse, and she loved telling me how she would race. She had little Shetland ponies. She would race the train into Shamva. So yeah, then my grandfather was from Scotland, near Kerrymuir. And I actually, my mum, she's ailing now. She's 89 yesterday, and she asked me to take her to try and find the house that my grandfather was born in. So when I was in Scotland visiting her, blow me down, we found that house, and it was
Really?
almost identical to what she remembered. It was like uncanny. So my grandfather came across to Rhodesia when he was about 16 or 17, and started working for the McIntyres in Shamva. And then he bought a farm there, and then obviously my gran and him got together, and then they had one child, which was my mother, and that was it. But yeah, they were in Shamva for donkey's years. My dad's family were 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 on the home farm. Yeah, I never knew my grandmother. She died of black water fever, buried in the Shamba Cemetery when my dad was probably 3 or 4 years old. So the grandpa raised them. He was alive when I was born, but I don't remember him. And we were on that farm in Shamba for many years. Like there was a little room near my grandpa's house, and they called it Mafundis. And I found out that was because the padre used to stay in it, and the mafunda is as you know, is to teach. So he used to teach them about religion, and that's what he was a Presbyterian guy. And then my dad left school pretty young, like 15 odd, because there were other kids to educate. And he came onto the farm there, and he opened up the farm with a little bit of tobacco, and that's what he used to burn all the wood. And I remember the one land, which was about 300 acres in those days, was called Bergamwana. And Bergamwana in Shona means having a baby. So I then spoke to some of the old laborers, and I said, "Why did you call this land Bergamwana?" So they said, because it took us 9 months to stump that land. So by that time, our wives had babies. So that was called Bergamwana. So
Lovely.
then, yeah. So then I was obviously raised there. I didn't really want to go farming. I didn't, but then I didn't want to disappoint my grandfather and my dad. So my grandfather and my dad and Mike Butler bought the farm next door to us, which they went into partnership with from an old man called an old English guy by the name of Boss Jenks, and he was very big into conservation, and they used to have a thing called Jenks Circus. And that was a conservation in Shamva, which Mike Dawson took over when Boss Jenks died. But I then obviously I went to a really good school called Prince Edward Man's School, blue blood for you
What junior
plebs.
school?
Highlands, yeah, I went to Highlands. I was boarding.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was boarding from when I was standard one to when I finished my schooling in upper six, and I did manage to pass some exams. And then, like we finished writing our A levels in end of December, 15th of December, I was conscripted, national service, off to the Hondo, which
So what year was that, Graham?
1976. Yeah.
And just tell me, who were your contemporaries at PE that I might know? Who's
Huddy was a little bit. Colin Huddy was just below
okay?
us.
Yes.
Colin Patterson was there.
Okay.
Grant Patterson was below us. Hendrik O'Neill was in my class. Gert
Okay.
O'Neill played rugby with, and he was actually killed when we went to do an op.
Yes.
So the Taylor brother twins were in our hostel. I don't know if you know an eye surgeon by the name of Colin Cook. He actually he went to Cape Town eventually, but he was our next door neighbor. He was our head of house in Salou. The Cooksons, Doug Cookson.
Yes, Doug
Kevin
Cookson was.
Cookson. He was shot in Mount
Yeah, we
Darwin.
were on the same. We were on the same recruit course.
Yeah. So Kevin was a mate of ours, and he unfortunately had a hunting accident after the Hondo.
Yeah, that's right. And Ray Farson.
Yeah, Raymond Farson. Yeah, he was
He was
there with
also
us.
on my recruits course.
Quinny Marnovic. I don't know if you remember him. He was Raymond Farson's big mate. What Patchy Simmons was, I skivvied for him. Mark McNulty, I skivvied for.
Yes.
Who was the other golfer? Nicky
Nick
Price.
Price.
Yeah, like that guy was so humble. Like he was in what we call 5 rapid, which means you 5 repeat. So you failed your O level in the 4th year. And I was sitting there in Afrikaans, and I'm not very good at Afrikaans. I can swear, and that's about all. He used to sit close to me, and I said to one of the oaks, "Where's Nick? How come he's not at class?" They said, "Don't you know?" So I said, "No, what?" They said, "He's leading the junior amateur golf championships in America." I didn't even know he played golf at that stage.
Oh, really?
So, and Peter Carr, he was one of his contemporaries, and he played good golf as well.
Well, there's a hell of a story there, because he won that tournament. He won
I know.
Junior. And then who was the headmaster? Subtle.
No, I think it was Subtle at that stage. Yeah,
he was pissed off because Nick went to play without permission. The headmaster wouldn't give him permission to go because he didn't like golf very much, because it wasn't a team sport. So Nick his mom said go, and off he went. He wins the damn thing. He's now the world champion, and I don't think the headmaster would even mention it at assembly.
Well, I don't think so. He probably got lashed when he got back for bunking school.
Well, they didn't lash him hard enough. I hope he listens to this.
Yeah, because he became world number 1 at one stage as well.
Yeah, he did. Oh yeah, no, he went on to the very top of the golfing ladder.
I don't remember what the tournament was, but at St Andrews. But we went there, and there was Nicky and Mark and Johnson playing as a team against other players. And I remember Nick, when he was on the 18th, just coming off the 18th green, he said, "Hey boys, I'll meet you at this pub just up the road here." And then we was all sitting there having a big chinwag, and he says to his pilot, "Go and refuel the jet. I need to leave in a couple of hours." And off he went.
Oh, wonderful guy. That's just the best story too, Nick. And I think he's made friends, probably the best ambassador Zimbabwe ever had, actually.
Because he loved his fishing, and he loved Rhodesia as it was. He never turned his back on our country, like a lot of people. And Hannes, you know as well as I do that we had incredible friendships there. We had incredible sportsmen. Pro rata or per capita, we must have been the best sporting nation in the world. We held our own in tennis, the Blacks, in hockey, the Golden Girls. My sister actually, I didn't mention I had a sister, but she missed the Olympics because she was still at university at Rhodes. But when she came back from Rhodes, they took on the Russians. If you remember, they boycotted that. And they either won 1-0 or drew with them at sports club. And my sister was playing in that game, and she actually was captain Zimbabwe at that stage. Yeah.
And swimmers, not many. Everybody seems to think that Charlotte, who's now the princess, is a South African. But,
no, she's Zimbabwean. Yeah.
She's from Bulawayo. The family only left when she was about 12, and she went on to win at the Olympics. I think she got a couple of medals. I'm not sure, but across the board, Fantastic sportsman. And you know, we mustn't get too bloody distracted, but
Well, Ian Robertson, funnily enough, was from Shamva. He was across the river from us. And he had a younger brother called Neil, which was probably more talented than Ian, but he was small. So he didn't really get to where Ian did. But the funny thing was that my grandfather and Ian's dad, they used to go to the mine club in Shamva for a couple of pots and a little bit of fisticuffs. And the old man used to play the mouth organ, and that's when my grandfather played the violin. And so Shamva was a really, really robust place.
Well, and of course the Morkels and the Dunlops.
Oh yeah,
never a dull moment around that.
Yeah, the Butlers, all from there. No, and the funny thing was that there was something in the water, because there weren't many girls. My sister was one, and the one Morkel, there were two Morkel, or in fact, David Morkel had the daughters, the beautiful daughters, three of them. And then Rex Morkel had one daughter, and John Morkel had one daughter. And that was about and the Brooke Jacksons, they also had a daughter there. So yeah, but our big night in Shamva was a Monday night, funnily enough.
Really?
And Bob Cocker, I don't know if you remember the late Bob Cocker from Matepa Tepa. He said to his mates in Mateps, if you're ever depressed, you go to Shamva Club on a Monday night, you'll leave there laughing.
Lovely stuff, Graham. So off to the war. You start off at
I went to Llewellyn like everyone else did. And it was so cuck, and I took one look at King Rat there, and I said, no, I'm not going to DB with that. So we had a chat amongst the mates there, and we said, no, the first course that comes, we're going to go for it, whether it's RLI, whether it's Squadron, whether it's Scouts, whether it's Osbies, but we're going to go for it. And the officers course came around first. So I passed the selection there, and off I went to Gweru. I was commissioned there into armored cars. At that stage, I think I was the youngest ever to be commissioned into the army. I just turned 18.
Wow.
And then I was given a troop at armored cars, and luckily, I don't know if you knew the late Mush Garvin.
Yes, very well. I was about to ask
Mike was my troop sergeant, and he looked after me like a little boy. Like he would take me everywhere with him. He chengetted me. I owe a lot to Mush and those guys.
You know that the Garvins and the Garvin family and our family were like together right from the beginning. So he was one of my oldest and dearest friends. And then
he was a good man. Yeah, coming from the Maduro show. Yeah, and
what a wonderful personality too.
He was a good.
Never stop laughing around.
No, he didn't. He was a good man. Yeah, so we were doing national service, and I forgot at School of Inf. They said to us, right, who of you have got university qualifications or entrances? So we said, a few of us, yeah. There were only 24 on the course. And they said, don't stand that side. And you guys, I know we thought, 1 year. They said, good news, you guys got university. You can go for 2 years into national service. And you guys that haven't got, you've got your 18 months, because that's when they took it to 18 months. And so I was 2 years at that stage. And we had a little bit of a tragedy when I thought I was called in. We were based in Vic Falls, and I was called in by the officer commanding. I thought, geez, what have I done now? He said, sit down, please, Lieutenant Ray. So he said, I've got some bad news for you. I said, what's that? He says, your grandfather's been murdered. And our farm manager, Billy Dunn, I don't know if you remember Billy Dunn.
No.
So
what actually happened, Graham?
My gran she was like quite a fitness guy, and she would take the dogs every evening for a walk. They captured her, and my grandpa went home, and Nana, that's what we called her, Nana wasn't there. So he went to look for her. And in the meantime, the gone through another route that took her up to the house there, made her cook food. As my grandfather got there, stepped out the car, they drilled him. And then I can't remember how they shot Billy, but I just remember my grandparents' story vividly. And when they shot my grandfather, my gran ran into the bedroom, and my grandpa used to keep a pump. We were all issued with those semi-automatic Browning shotguns in those days, and these gooks went after her because she had been cooking them chow. My grandfather was dead at the back door, and they shot her dogs. And then they heard her cock the shotgun. But she was so in running to the bedroom, she had hit the alarm button on the agric alert. So these oaks were so brave that, and luckily for my gran, she was in the cupboard, which was sort of, as you came to the door, it was behind the door basically. So they just sprayed. They thought she was under the bed, so they just sprayed that bedroom full of bullets. And then there'd been a reaction stick was quite close to the farm. It was called Burnley Farm, and the goose them coming. But unbeknown to my gran, she jammed the shotgun. So she was toast if any one of them had 1 ounce of bravery in them. So they all buggered off. So I jumped on a plane from Vic Falls and met my folks. My gran refused to leave the house. So my sister and I rode horses, and being on the next door farm, we decided, probably very foolishly, to ride across to my gran, which was about 5 k's. We rode right past the that were hiding in the reeds in the dam, and went to see my gran. Rode back past them, and then some of the staff made a report that they knew where these guys were. So an Indian company that was based in Bandura came in there, and I think they shot them all. I think it was 4 or 5 in that stick. So they did get them. And then I decided that doing 2 years, I might as well sign up for 3 years and get a little bit of tin, because we were on, like, I think it was about $150 a month as national service. So I got a big wad of cash to sign up, which I saved, and later on I put irrigation on the farm. Yeah. So
really?
Yeah.
So your deployments initially at the Falls?
Well, all over, because we were armor, we were positioned normally on the border. So wherever the powers that be thought there was a threat, like we did Mutari, we did down at what's that place called, Crook's Corner, Villa Salazar, Bitebridge, all those places, Kariba. So I thank the army. I actually probably did a lot of seeing of Zimbabwe, which I never would have seen if I'd hadn't been in the army.
Graham, so you were on the elands.
I had a troop of elands at 90 mil. We did have ferrets, because I don't know if you know, but Selous Scouts actually started armored cars, and they were using ferrets. Yeah. And then we got the ferrets, which were amazing little vehicles. They didn't have much firepower. You just had Brownings on there, 7.62 Brownings. But the elands had 2 Brownings on them, one on top and one under in line with the gun, the big 90 mil cannon. We carried 20 rounds of 90 mil, 15 being high explosive, and 5 armored piercing. And there was a crew of 3. Yeah.
Graham, how many fights did you get involved in at Prospectors during the course of your military career?
I didn't actually win many of them, but we used to. Mike Banfield, do you remember Mike Banfield?
Yes, yeah.
So Banners didn't drink, so he was our bodyguard. So if anyone wanted to stuff us up, we said, Banners, that oak there, go and clap him for us. So, the good thing about Rhodesia, it doesn't matter whether it was the Red Lion or Prospectors or anything. A fight was a fight, and you shook hands afterwards and you drank beer together. Not like stick a knife in him or a bottle in his face. It was gentleman fighting, Queensbury rules. Because I don't know if you remember Steve Barton.
Yeah, very well.
Oh, well, that oak decked me once. I flew.
This is him. Y'all carry on?
Yeah. So he decked me the one day at Sports Club. But I managed, because I was a little bit smaller and quicker than him, I got 2 good ones. I smacked his nose and I cut his lip. And then he hit me and I flew. And then the oak, thank goodness, pulled us apart. Because I was toast then. That oak was, yes, he was a beast.
He was a big bastard. He
could
have played. I mean, I think he did have a few games for Rhodesia.
He did. I'll tell you a funny story. I can't remember who the lock was for Northern Transvaal.
I'll tell you who it was. Mona van Heerden.
Yeah, Mona van Heerden. So Barton was like 19 or 20, and he kept pulling him down in the lineup because in those days you weren't allowed to lift; you had to leap with yourself. So Mona said in Afrikaans, "You lady, I'm going to f you up properly, chap." So Barton, yeah, I'm rough and tough and hard to bluff. Anyway, pulled him down once more, and Mona van Heerden said, "I've warned you." Next line out, everyone goes. Barton's sleeping. He smacked him properly.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I think it was actually the end of his rugby career. I don't think he got it back together after that.
No, I can't remember if he carried on playing, but he wasn't a mate of mine at that stage. And then he came in and farmed in Bandura, and that's when we became mates.
That's right. And Graham, tell
and
us.
Raymond Farson, do you remember him?
Very well.
Yeah. And what was the other guy's name? He also, a Guinea fowl boy, played flank.
Don Fraser.
Don Fraser, yeah. He was in Bandura there as well.
Yeah, also my recruits course, and I'm in touch with Don frequently. He's in Australia.
Yeah, I speak to Don. He's an Aussie. I met him when my boys were playing World Cup polo cross for Zambia in Warwick. There, he came and saw us. Yeah,
wonderful guy, fantastic,
excellent guy,
fantastic guy, Graham. And I spoke to him about a year ago. A very interesting talk with old AJ Erasmus. He was also a lieutenant, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And he saved the day there at Vic Falls. But tell us about the surfing down First Street.
No, obviously we were. When you've got a bit of soup in your stomach, you are one, bulletproof, and two, you're incredibly good looking, and irresistible to the fairer sex. So we're coming from Flagstaff, and Gary Hodgson and myself had these Datsun 120Ys. He was also a loot in armored cars, living in Joburg now. And AJ decides, no, he wants to surf down 2nd Street. So he said, AJ, what are you going to do? No, he says, Ray, I'm going to climb out your passenger window. Hodgson, you're going to come close to Ray, and we're going to go down. I'll have a foot on Ray's driver's door and one on your passenger door. So AJ climbs out, because he used to box for Rhodesia. I don't know if you knew that. So AJ climbs out there, and he's going down there yodeling, and we're all laughing. The mellows are high. And for some reason, Gary Hodgson chickened out. So he hit the brakes. So obviously I'm going, and now AJ's got one foot in my door, and he goes for a perler. He rolls down the road in 2nd Street there, dusts himself up, got roasties on his arms, because in those days, remember when we used to go to nightclubs, you had to get togged up. You had to have ties and jackets and that sort of stuff. But he didn't have a jacket on, so he had roasties all on his arm, dusts himself off, bleeding, and off we go to Rosalind's like nothing's happened. Just crazy days we used to have there.
Graham, you were decorated. Just tell us, you got a Bronze Cross for bravery. Just tell us a bit about what actually happened there.
No, I think it wasn't one specific instance. I think the crowning, probably the icing on the cake, was a punch up in Mount Cylinder, where we were getting mortared by pale skinned people, and I would imagine you can guess it was probably Cubans. So we had to direct fire, and they were out of range. So I basically climbed a tree, loaded my gun, told my gunner what to do, and when I thought we were at the target, we'd pull the trigger, and then big bang, and that was that. And then they then found out that we were up the tree, and so obviously they started shooting a lot at us. But we took out their crew, and we took out their house, and our range of our gun was about 2.4 Ks. So we did a little clever thing, because it's quite a heavy shell. So we sort of aimed into the sky and looped it into their house through their front door. So they were like taken out properly. But first we'd hit the mortar crew. So yeah, that was one of the instances, and we had another huge punch up on the border down near Villa Salazar, where we culled about 50 of them, and the Canberras came in and helped. I don't know how many we got. I think they got a lot more than we did, but that was the body count, and there was a lot of sort of little things that added up to me getting the gong, really.
That would have been, was that Frelimo you were
I don't know who it was, but we were on the border there, and they opened up on us.
What heavy guns did they have, Graham?
Really, just 12.7s was the biggest that they had, and RPG 7s and stuff like that, which we had to be a little bit careful of, because I don't think if I had into a war, I don't think I'd get it in a tin can again, because they are so susceptible now to drones and everything else. It's almost a death trap, man. I feel sorry for the guys in the tanks.
Yeah. Graham, did you do any training in South Africa? Did you go down
No,
there?
I didn't. We had the South African guys come up and train us here from Potch. We had a training area in just near Rari South there, which we used to use. And then another one down at Kwekwe, AJ's hunting ground. There was a big range there, which the Air Force used to use, and we used to as well.
You had an American commander at one time.
Yeah. What was his name? Winkler. Yeah.
So he put you all in black.
Yeah, I put us all in black. Yeah. And I can't remember that there was an article about armored cars, and can't remember what that magazine was. It was Special Forces. It was an international magazine. So yeah, he put us all in black, all the regular guys. Hey, that was you pulled chicks in that. Leather jackets. No, it was quite something. And then we had a German as our adjutant as well. So yeah, we were sort of multinational. And I don't know if you remember Kemish, SAS guy, Mike Kemish.
No, I don't know.
He was with us as well, and I think he actually had a candle after the Hondo and was killed.
Graham, were you involved at the death there at Op Courts, and when there was?
Well, we were on Op Miracle. That's where I took a bit of lead. And spent a couple of months in hospital at.
Just tell us what actually happened. How you were hit?
Well, we went in there, and that's when Gert O'Neill was killed. He was my infantry. So because we went and we was clearing a lot of trenches, and I got dusted there first, and then we got ambushed trying to get the choppers and to Casevac me. Then they took me to. What's that lake up there in
Alexander,
yeah, where they had a mobile operating theatre. The scouts doctor took one look at me, said, I'm sending you to Amtali. I landed there just as I was getting loaded. Another chopper landed, and that was poor old Gert, and he didn't make it that night. Yeah.
So where were you hit? In the legs?
In the shoulder. But I was... Yeah, I was. I got a little bit of lust there, and I couldn't let my gunner have all the fun, so I popped my stuff out the turret, and I was using the gun on top of the turret, which I shouldn't have been doing. I should have been inside, and that's where I took a bit of shrapnel. Yeah.
How long were you hospitalized for?
6 weeks. Baggett wanted to. No, in Avenues. Baggett was the surgeon. He wanted to cut my wing off. And thank goodness, what was that other orthoped?
Stannis White.
Stannis White said, no, I'll save this action. And I've got 100% use of it now.
Incredible. Huh? So they actually wanted to take it off.
Yeah, there was a big hole there. I've got no collarbones missing, well, half my collarbones missing. And like afterwards, post-op, I had to go for when I was released from Avenues, 30 injections into my shoulder, one every day, and that I think fixed me. And then basically that was the end of the Hondo. Really, that I was discharged in December of 79, 80. I was on my way to varsity.
Okay, so then you went to varsity?
Yeah, I did 4 years there. I did agriculture. And I did an honors degree, and then after that, like when we arrived there, it was like an influx of Rhodesians, because it was people like myself that done 3 years, those that had done 2 years national service, those that had done 1 year national service, and those oaks that we called them the 6-week wonders, that had basically done first phase, and everyone was discharged at the same time, and we all ended up in Maritzburg, which was mayhem. It was, they didn't know what hit them. but it was good fun.
I'm sure it was, Graham. So varsity and then back home, back to Zimbabwe.
No, then we decided that it was time for walkabout, and my cousin, the late Nev Mallet, was in London,
Yes.
and Rinty was in America.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I went across there. Nev was working, and I had a little bit of tin because my late grandfather's brother gave me like $3,000 to go walkabout, and that was a lot of money in those days. So I went to London, and it was February. It was cold. It was miserable. And I said to Nev Mallet, I said, Nifty, my boy, I'm going. I'm going to the sun. I can't handle this cold. So I said, okay, let's go. And we went to California, where we worked for a company called Starving Actors, doing furniture removals. And then when we bought a Mustang, a two-door Mustang. And then when we had enough money, we started traveling. And then we found Rinty. He was in Colorado at a place called Fort Collins. And I'll never forget this. And he says, Ray Mallet, how much money have you got left? I want to see your wallets, as only Rinty can say. So we open our wallets there, and he says, you oaks, takes all our money. Eh? So then he goes now, he's transporting horses to Vegas, and he leaves us with no tin. And we ended up sleeping in a stable. And then we went to this pub. And there was this gorgeous barmaid, and obviously we managed to fascinate her with our wit and our accent. So she says, "No, come and stay with me and my flatmate, who was equally gorgeous." And then they looked after us, and she took us doping, and eventually, after that, and amongst other things, we decided, no, man, we're going to get stuck here in Fort Collins, so we need to do a runner. So we packed our bags into our car, and off we went. And we were going to Canada. There was a festival there, a rodeo called the Banff Festival. And when we got to the border, there was Rinty, myself, and Neville in the car. They put us in 3 different rooms, and they interviewed us. And they denied us entry because they said we were mercenaries. So we never got to the Banff Festival, and then we went along the border to the west coast and came down back to California. And then
what made them think you were
I don't know. Like that good friend of mine, Roy, his son, wanted to open a bank account. And this was recently, and they said no, they wouldn't let him open a bank account because he was a political at-risk person. And, it was ludicrous, but I suppose that's why. And the same thing happened when we went to the beer fest. We were coming into Austria, and they accused me of being a mercenary there as well. But they let me through eventually.
No, not easy. Graham, so then you finished buggering around, back to work. Back to the farm.
Back to work. And I'll never forget this. My old man bought me, I'll never buy a Suzuki motorbike again. And I ended up pushing that motorbike more around the farm than riding it because it was so shit. But yeah, I stayed on the farm there, and then what happens with father son sort of have a little bit of a dust up. So I decided that I was going to go to Mashvinga, and I went down to Mashvinga where we did crocodiles for a while with Tug Morkel and Keith Brooks Jackson. Yeah. We sold that setup, and then my old man was not well, so I went back to the farm, and he went to town, and that's where we stayed on the farm, and they had a house at Montgomery Road, and then. I don't know whether rightly or wrongly, we all backed the MDC, and it was televised. If you remember, the guys in Chinoy signing checks, and I think that gave Bob an excuse to go after the whites, and yeah, that's where we had like 3 hit squads. I remember a guy phoning me. That was when we first got those big brick cell phones, phoning me in the middle of the night. Telling me, these guys have left Mbari, they're in this car, this is the weapons they've got. I didn't know him from a bar of soap. I phoned my mate, and I said, this oak has just phoned me. He said, what's his name? I told him. He said, run, pal. So backed up the car, gone. And this happened 3 times. And then the final straw was, the second time I managed to get Bernardine and the kids out. I got a warning that these guys were coming. At that stage, I was carrying a shoulder holster. and we were on a radio network, and I got hold of my good neighbor Paul Metcalf, and I said, Paul, I'm in shit. If I hit the button 3 times, you just mobilize guys and come and get me. And the next thing, Paul arrives, and this was with Bordegesi, and
Talk up a bit, Graham. You talk very softly.
Sorry, Bordegesi,
Yeah.
and he'd come with 60 army guys, Paul, he being a very jovial guy, he managed to diffuse the situation. But prior to that, they were telling me now I was in Selous Scouts, and I remember you hanging us upside down in helicopters and a lot of bull dust. So Metcalf managed to diffuse the situation. And the next day, they came back when I went into Harare, and they beat up my labor and all that sort of thing. Then they started coming to peg the lands. They claimed they were all ex-combatants from the DRC, and they'd come in APCs and gone. So me being Ray, as soon as they left, I'd discard everything they'd done. So they didn't get too happy. And then I used to put an OP out. So when they were coming, the guy would give me a call, and I would jump on my motorbike and vamoose until they'd gone. They're coming to take you out tonight. So we phoned the cops, and they said, no, there's nothing we can do. It's political. So I got into the sort of house with Bernardine, and we retreated into the bedroom there, laid the guns out on the bed, gave her a crash course on really how to load it and just pull the trigger. And this went on all night. My sister was phoning people in Harare, journalists, and so everyone was aware of what was going on. And then at about 5 o'clock, and we'd taken food and stuff, and I managed to get my dogs because I was sure they were going to kill my dogs. So I brought my dogs into the bedroom there, and we'd locked all the doors, interleading doors. And at 5 o'clock in the morning, they started with demos because we had wooden doors. So I phoned the cops, and I said, listen, pal, I've been phoning you all night, but they'd cut off our electricity early on in the night. And I said, bring 61 body bags. So he says, why? I said, for one, I've got 300 rounds. For 2 hours, a marksman in the army. And the first oak who sticks his head into my house, I'm going to blow it off. Well, in about 15 minutes, the cops were there. And they said, no, you must go. I said, why must I go? No, you are the problem. I said, why am I the problem? I've got a certificate of no present interest. I've done everything by the book. So I don't see how I'm a problem. So then I said, okay, here are my weapons. Take my weapons. And they said, no, you keep your weapons. And we left. And that was the last time we got back to the house for a long time. And then we decided that Max Sporran and Werner Nickel and myself decided, no, Zim is a bit dicey. Let's go and look at Mozambique. Well, it was nice. We had this romantic knowledge of being by the sea,
Yes, yes.
Sea was a big thing, and eating prawns and that sort of thing. But, we went to some farms outside Tet there. And what I couldn't believe is that those farms were still intact. The dairy was there. The roof sheets were there. The milking parlor was there. We went into the house, and it was surreal in that the places for chow was laid. We opened the guy's drawer, and there were all his time books and everything. So, they'd had to, I think they were given 48 hours to leave.
Portuguese, yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
So that would have been sitting like that for what, 15?
Yeah, at least.
Yes.
And then it was on the beds and everything. But one thing that disturbed us is when we arrived there was no one there. And after walking around and checking things, guys were coming out the woodwork and saying, no, that's my tree and this is that. So we say, well, this is what Zim was like, so better we go somewhere else. And then someone said, come look in Zambia. And when we were kids, we remember my parents had friends in Zambia, and they would come down, and they ended up farming in Karoo. I can't remember their names now. But they were coming down to buy salt and soap and cooking oil and stuff like that. So we thought this is a bit strange going to Zambia. Then we came across, and the first thing that Max Sporran and I noticed was the amount of cars. And now we were basically on fuel rationing and the building. And then we decided, well, maybe this is not so bad. So we started looking around. We went up to Makushi. We had a look there, and we decided, it's 3-4 hours out of Lusaka. You couldn't buy bearings, fan belts. So we decided that was too far out of town, and we decided that we were going to look within a 100K radius of Lusaka. And we ended up here on Zambezi Ranching and Cropping, which is about 40 Ks north of Lusaka. And that's where we put down our roots, and we developed it from bush, really. It was a ranch. There was no cropping. We put in dams, we put in irrigation, and we developed a farm here.
Zambia has smiled on Graham Ray, once one of Zimbabwe's largest cotton farmers. He arrived here in 2001 with just a suitcase and a young family. Hounded out of Zimbabwe, he was given a hero's welcome here, allocated former rundown state farms on the outskirts of Lusaka, a 90% bank loan, citizenship, and later elevated to the vice presidency of the National Farmers Union. Though he hasn't given up his fight for compensation, he says he won't be moving back to Zimbabwe anytime soon.
We had an approach about a month ago from some politicians, yes, asking me to go back. When I first came across here, the governor from the Central Province sent messages and envoys to speak to me. But it's like I said, it's about trust, it's about transparency, it's about law and order. Are they genuine or not? I don't know.
Bray is preparing to export maize seed to Angola. His 30,000-hectare farm has 9,000 cattle, as well as pigs and chickens. It also produces a variety of crops, including tobacco, soya beans and potatoes.
I feel secure. I think the land issue shouldn't be a problem here, because there's so much land, and government policy is very strict on how you use the land.
I heard what happened in Zimbabwe. That was a poor manner of thinking. Sacking this how do you say it? Chasing these people. But here, we are rich because of these people.
The calm and warmth of Zambia have attracted farmers from other countries and helped transform the country from an importer of food to the regional breadbasket. South Africa's high crime rate, as well as other factors, drove recent animal scientist graduate Renee Summers here.
This is home. Like I said, in the 2 years that I've been here, I've managed to become, just because of the scale of the farm that I work on, I've experienced in my last 2 years here stuff that I wouldn't have experienced in 5-10 years in South Africa in the same position.
They're having a very positive impact on Zambia's agriculture, and we're happy to have them.
Zambia rubbishes claims that it is too liberal.
This is something that we as Africans must be very cautious of. There is no reason for us to brag ownership of a resource that we can ill exploit because of lack of financing, lack of capital. Investment is investment, whether it's foreign direct investment or is local investment.
Meanwhile, Zambia is preparing to open 1 million hectares of new land for farming, of which 10% will be reserved for foreign commercial investment. The northern migration won't be over anytime soon. Shingai Nyoka, SABC News, Chisamba, Northern Zambia.
Graham, that all credit to the Zambian government, I think, because Mugabe was not happy about the fact that you guys were being welcomed, and I think it was President Mwanawasa who stood solid and said, "I'm not taking orders from you. These people have got something to offer, and we're happy to have them in Zambia." And that was quite a brave move at the time, if I remember correctly.
No, 100%. And the Zambians were very good to us. Excuse me, we didn't have a banking sector really here. They were just shuffling government bonds. So we came with a letter from Barclays, from head office there, saying to Barclays, "Yeah, please, these are good people. If you can help them, help them." And most of us started, and Max Warren set up a consultancy business where he relocated the farmers with Chris Thorne.
Yes. Yeah.
So anyway, that's what they did. They availed us of working capital, a little bit of development money. Some farmers fell by the wayside. Others managed to. It hasn't been easy, because this is a real world. You're not playing on devaluation like we used to do in Zim, of the Zim dollar. We were playing with proper currency, US dollar and kwacha. And people, well, banks didn't really understand farming, you know, a long-term loan of 3 years, and we needed 10 years. And, you know, you had to change the mindset. But politically, I can't thank the Zambians enough. They were open arms. They've got a different culture. Their doors are always open. You don't have to have eyes in the back of your head to see who's going to stab you. Everything is at face value. The markets, all I can say, the only criticism that I can say, and it's not the first time I've said it on an interview, is that we need consistency in government policy. And then the farmers can farm and export and do well. Farmers have done very well here, but there have been casualties, all dams, all that sort of thing. So Makushi is a good farming area now. I think when we went up there were 100 vacant farms. I don't think there are any vacant farms now.
Wow.
Just Zambia, we've got quite a good a lot of farmers in here. That's fully developed now. Choma, Kaloma area there, I think it's basically well developed. The Mazabuka area, there are a few Zim farmers there, but they were pretty much developed, the Mazabuka guys, so there wasn't much opportunity there. So it's, you know, I've raised 2 kids here. We built a school just not far from here called Martin House, 40 kilometers, where my kids went from junior school. Now they're in senior school there. But the funny thing is, I don't know if you remember Pete Roby from Shamva. No. So his wife, Betty Roby, was a stoker from Shamva. And when she was a young teacher, she taught me at Highland School. And guess who taught my son at Martin House? Betty Roby.
Oh, really?
No, so it was amazing. Eh? So her son is here. Her daughter's in I think in Mauritius, and she lives in Australia now. Where Pete immigrated to. After he tragically had a heart attack there and passed away. But she came to Martin House maybe a year ago, and that school started in the chicken run, and that was probably maybe 15 years ago now. We go up to A level now. We've got 240 students. So it's like a wow school. You know, people are very happy there. We've got our ethos basically revolves around discipline, manners, and because we're not a big school, we play sport. We try and be as competitive as possible. But you know, if 2 people are injured or sick, you struggle to rank the team. But academically, it's very strong, which is good. We've got good teachers a lot from Zimbabwe, England, Zambian teachers. So yeah, it does well.
Well, I only hear good reports about it, Graham. Hats off to you, man. Incredible what you've done. But you know, I just want to go back to the way the Zambian officials handled post the situation after the land invasions. And another chap who was very well received was Roy Bennett, and I was seeing quite a lot of Roy at that time. And you know, he was a very high-profile political guy, and it was quite a hot potato. But again, the Zambians were very forthright, and I think very brave, the way they said, this guy, we don't have a problem with him. You don't want him, he can stay here. And I think President Mwanawaso actually personally intervened on Roy's behalf at some stage to make sure that he was okay.
You know, Roy started, he was actually godfather to my, and Heather, godparents to my youngest kid.
Okay.
He was like he still is, they called him the electric pickaninny because he just couldn't keep still. And then when that tragedy happened, I sort of took over Casey and Charles. Casey now living in Belito. Charles has just sold his farm. All his kids here. So he's like a son to me. So we look after them. He actually said to me, he sent me a WhatsApp the other day saying, you know, this is a place that I really feel at home. I really feel like our specific farm. So yeah, we were close to the Bennetts, and it was a travesty of life, really.
Graham, you froze when you were talking about that night when he went to see the president. Just tell us again what happened. He flew in.
Say again.
Roy flew in.
No, so he flew in. He was whisked off the tarmac. So I was waiting at arrivals. And then he called me and he said, listen, I've been taken straight to State House. Go and wait at the pub. So I went to Rhapsody's, sat there until 2 o'clock in the morning, then phoned Roy again. I said, hey, Budza, what's happening, pal? He said, no, they're putting me in a safe house, but I'll come and see you tomorrow. And he came out to the farm with some security details to look after him. And they were with him until they put him back on the plane, back to Joburg.
Hell of a good story. And hats off to the Zambians, because it was a politically unpopular move, I think, within the whole SADC region. I mean, the South Africans weren't criticizing anything. Mbeki was president then, and he was very supportive, basically, of the land invasions.
Yeah, that's right.
So
I must tell you a funny story. Talking about the Zambians, when we decided to build that dam, we hired National Service, which is they had all this Chinese equipment, and there was their foreman or supervisor was a guy by the name of Chuma, and the one day he says to me, Mr. Ray, God works in funny ways, doesn't it? So I said, and how do you work that out, Chuma? He said, no, you Rhodesians stole all our money from Zambia or northern Rhodesia, and you built Harare. Now God's given us the farmers back.
Oh, that's a lovely story.
Oh no, I chuckled there.
There is some truth in that. You know, I think a lot of the copper revenues were actually siphoned off.
100%. If you go in depth in that, and the tobacco, you know, the guys used to call Fort Jameson, which is Chapata now. They used to truck tobacco, and there's huge, lovely tobacco, lovely soil there, all the way down to sell it in Harare. Can you imagine that?
You know, Graham, I've also got fond memories. I went up to Zambia in 83, beginning of 84. And funny enough, well, it's not funny, not unsurprising, we weren't very well received by the white Zambian guys, particularly the hunting fraternity. Probably understandably, they just weren't that happy to see us in this side, the other side of the river. But the guy that helped us enormously was Scylla Frost's dad. And I mention this because she's
Peter,
the person at the school.
Yeah.
No, David, the online David.
Okay.
He was
No, Peter's a brother, sorry, yeah.
really good to us. He was heading the Professional Hunters Association then, and he really gave us a hand. But again, you know, the black Zambians that we dealt with were all totally supportive and helpful. And this was quite soon after the bloody war ended, you know, and there was every reason to believe there should be some bitterness. But I never really encountered anything like that.
Hannes, I think the white guys, I think the problem probably was emanated from them believing, well, they were viewed as potential spies, and I think they came under a lot of heat.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Yeah, so you know, now there's no angst or animosity, and we've got good friends. But at some stage, I didn't tell you this, but the CIO came up here, and they had a list of all the white Zimbabwean farmers, and I think they went to Pakra and got that list, or we were shocked, one or the other. And Colin Taylor was in Lusaka West, and he said to me, Graham, these guys are coming your side. And so I told Campbell Dunlop, I told him the reg number of the car, and we caught them up at the northern part of the farm trying to come in. So we took them to the cops in Chisamba, and we said to them, hey, this is what's happened. We don't know who these people are. So they locked them up. And then a white Zambian phoned me and he sort of had a bit of a rant, and I said, listen, pal, because they viewed, I was one of the first guys, so they viewed me as probably the leader up here. And I said, if we've done something wrong, lock us up or tell us. But to my knowledge, I don't know anything that's been done wrong. So anyway, we went, myself and Max Sporran, we were invited to the rugby club at the showground, and by a lawyer there. And we were watching, I remember Aussie playing South Africa. And the guy says, do you know that I'm sitting at the bar there? So we said, no idea. He said, no, that's one of these guys that was trying to come into your farm. Do you want me to get rid of him? So we said, yeah, cool. So he said, I'll call my boys. And they whisked him out of there and gone. But then we when they let these guys out of jail, they dropped a woman and a man about a K down from my farm who came and wrecked my house. So the cops picked this up, and I've got a cop station quite close. So I went to the cops. Well, they called me down there and they said, "Do you know what this has happened?" So I said, "No, I didn't know." So I said, "Okay, where do I stand?" "Shoot them," they say.
Really?
I said, "Legally, I'm allowed to shoot them." He said, "He comes into your fence, drill him." And we never saw those guys again. So I don't know. I think it caused a little bit of a political upheaval because these guys had come in sort of undercover, had weapons and all that stuff. So they were basically chased out. So, the guys have looked after us. We look after, we've got, even in Shamva, I was one of the biggest cotton growers in Zimbabwe, and we used to get a lot of pickers come in from Msana and stuff, and we would give them seed and fertilizer, and they would pay us back when they came and picked cotton. We're a team here in Zambia. We don't live on an island of white farmers. If the guys need help, if their cattle are stolen, we put out horses and motorbikes and vehicles, and we try and find these thieves because we are a community. We're a proper community here in Chisamba.
Hell of a story, Graham. Just tell us a bit about what you've got in place at the moment. I know you're doing blueberries, you've got cattle, just your operations as the
we do. We are very much a mixed farm. We do a lot of seed crops. I believe in open pollinated varieties of maize because the small scale farmers, their average yield here is about 2.2 tons a hectare, which we can easily sustain. I grow these open pollinated varieties. I get 6 to 7 tons. I'm quite happy. So I grow the seed and we distribute it to the guys. They can harvest that. And the good thing about it, it's natural selection. So climatically, if you find traits in your maize which suits your microenvironment, you go and pick those cobs and you look after and you plant them the next year. And you can only get better and better. We grow seed maize, we do soybeans, potatoes, wheat, barley. We used to do chickens, but when I put my labor housing, we have to pass a thing called SMETA, which is all about looking after labor properly, and they've got certain criteria that you have to meet on the accommodation. So we put them too close to the chickens, so we had to bin the chickens. That's what we do.
Graham, and you've got your kids, your boys are playing good polo?
Yeah, the little guys, Zimbabwe had an international tournament, and they invited the South African under-16 team who didn't pitch. So I was asked to raise a team, which I took to one 14-year-old, one 15-year-old, and one 16-year-old, and we went and wiped them.
Really? Huh?
Yeah. So the little guys are doing well. My big boys have all played international polo cross for Zambia in World Cups. My youngest of the first litter has also represented South Africa in polo cross. My little guys, Keegan, when they played against South Africa under 14, he was 10 years old, youngest guy ever to play for Zambia. But the little one is very talented. Unfortunately, I overhorsed him last weekend, and his horse came down on top of him, put him to sleep, fractured his ankle. So Mummy was very irritated with me. But horses are my passion. We breed them here as well. I really like my horses. It's I don't know if you know Penny Crockart, Penny Shepherd. She used to be a whopper. And they own Lewisham, Lewisham Riding School.
Okay.
And, she sort of helped the kids get interested in polo cross and stuff like that.
Wonderful.
But she's a hairnetter.
You see Carl Midlane? Middy's son.
Yeah, but you won't believe this.
Marathon in Italy, but he was
I know.
Ozzy Beer.
Yeah, that 10-kilometer one.
Yes.
It was a 10K, yeah. But he ran it. His time was insane. It was like just over 3 minutes per kilometer or something. It was like almost a sprint, man. And he came in there with the Zambian flag. But he's big Chinas with my boys in the UK. So my middle one, I've only got one of the 5 that are married. So he got married, and Carl was with them last weekend. Yeah,
fantastic.
he's very well. Yeah. But it's good, you know. When Gordon's 21st was he was at UCT, and blow me down, he didn't know, but 90% of his people that were at the party were all ex-roadies. And it's like we attract each other, and we've got the same ethos and the same humor. And people say, your humor's sick, man, but we don't think so. We think it's bloody funny. Yeah, but it's really amazing how we all clock together.
It's also you can't help but feel a little sad that we weren't allowed to stay together. What we could have done, sporting wise, I mean, what that country could have been if we'd just been left alone. But sadly, that was
politics won the day. Unfortunately, you know, obviously, you probably know we're working hard on compensation. We believe in free and fair compensation. We also believe strongly in the restitution of agriculture. We also believe strongly, and I don't know, what ID are you on?
SA.
Yeah, so I've still got my old ID from Zimbabwe, and in 1980 they put this 00 on the end. Did you know?
Yes.
So we were viewed as aliens. So we're trying to get back our constitutional rights. So there are 3 pillars to our movement, and we're working with an amazing person called Dr. Theo Diaga from SAI, who SAI basically revolves around the family unit in agriculture. So he's helping us a hell of a lot. Yeah, we've got 3 pillars, like I said: free and fair, full and fair compensation, restitution of agriculture, and getting back our citizenship. Funnily enough, I don't know if you know Trevor Gifford from he was farming down and
know of him.
Yeah. So Trevor tells me the other day that he went to get a new ID, and they've now dropped the 00. So now it feels that the wheels are slowly starting to turn. I think the biggest problem that we're getting now is they're issuing fraudulent title deeds, for want of a better word, where they've taken our title, even though my title deeds are sitting behind the screen in my filing cabinet, and have issued them. They've cut up those farms and reissued title deed, which is totally illegal. They can do it in Zimbabwe because you can't touch them at the moment, but certainly it's not going to stand up in a court of law internationally. And I just would caution the people if they're tempted, because you know you're getting farms for absolutely next to nothing. That in time the wheels will turn, like it's done in Eastern Europe, where restitution and compensation has come about. These farmers that have gone in JVs, for example, and spending lots of money when they want to expand, building dams, curing facilities, that sort of thing, they could lose everything, just like we did. So I would be very, very cautious. You know, stick to the rule of law is my advice. To those guys, and if they are in a JV with an illegal landlord, find out who the landowner is, do the right thing is, because there's a lot of people out there that are destitute, and you know, you and I are spring chickens compared to them. They're in their 80s. They've got they're living from hand to mouth. Go and pay them a lease for all their hard work that they did in the years to develop the farm that you are utilizing now.
I don't know if you saw, there was quite a lot in the English press last week about Kirsty Coventry, and who's now the IOC president. Apparently they're on a farm that belonged to the
Carey's farm. Yeah, Rob Carey. I spoke to him about it, yeah. And that's Peter McSporran is married to his sister. So, you know, McSporran, you know that saying, the pen is mightier than the sword, and that jock certainly has got the gift of the gab. And, you know, Kirsty Coventry has been very foolish. She's put her head above the parapet now, especially against Sebastian Coe, who's got an amazing track record on the development of athletics and stuff in the world. You know, with our Donald Trump and Musk going full guns ahead, I think that's I think the next Olympics are in America. So, man alive, I wouldn't put myself in.
And there's going to be an issue about transgender athletes, because
absolutely,
and Trump won't have anything.
He won't allow it. I don't know if you saw that boxing in the Olympics. where that one chick got a good club from this oak that said he was a chick, who had actually been banned by the Boxing Federation, those two, and they allowed them into the Olympics. This wokey stuff leaves me cold.
I know. Graham, did the Careys, have they been contacted at all about any?
100%. I think in Peter's latest blog, have a look at that. But I think he refers to Kirsty and her husband trying to speak to them and stuff like that, and really trying to wash their faces and come out squeaky clean. But Kirsty makes that very naive and I think immoral comment as, "Oh no, I'm trying to change it from within." Yeah. FIFA's bust. The sporting facilities are really only revolve around clubs and schools. She was hopeless in her so-called way of creating a safe sport in Zimbabwe.
Yeah, I know. I mean, the cricketers were hoping that she would help out with the cricket, but I think the situation got worse.
Yeah, it's very sad because, like you say, the one good thing about probably independence was you've opened the pool of sportsmen. You've got amazing black kids coming through in cricket and rugby, and they've almost done the same in South Africa, where they've opened that and managed to tap into a much bigger reservoir of talented sportsmen. Because carry on.
Last question, because I know you've got stuff to do, but how do you see things unfolding in South Africa now with the land deal?
Well, I see, over the weekend there was a very strong likelihood that the government of national unity was going to fail, was going to break up over the budget. But I believe, and I read a report this morning on News 24, that they've kissed and made up. I do honestly feel that, and I was speaking to some English people yesterday, I think that maybe with this government of national unity, the radicalism will stop. I certainly think that the economy will improve. The service providers, i.e. the councils and stuff, will start doing their jobs instead of stealing the money. I think there's going to be a lot of accountability coming to the fore. I think it's potentially could be good.
I see. Also, I've just seen a report. I think Ramaphosa has agreed to meet the AfriForum and Solidarity leaders.
The one that he was trying to hammer for espionage. Unfortunately, our problem as whiteys is we are naturally, we want things done yesterday. We're very impatient. Whereas the African culture, you've seen it, go and sit under a tree, have a keg of chubuku, and everything will be okay. Let the mfazi go and shanda in the munda while we drink and have a merry under the tree.
They probably got it right.
Yeah, they have got it right. We work too hard, man. And I think with Ramaphosa, I think he knows. Obviously you're going to get hawks and doves in any political party, and if you can convince the hawks that the doves or get a moderation between the hawks and the doves, I think South Africa will fly. You just got to go down there and you drive around Joburg or Pretoria or jump on the freeway down to Durban, and you think, yes, this is a lekker place, eh? But you start scratching the surface and all the cockroaches come out. And then you realize that there's underlying currents and stuff like that. But we go back to Zimbabwe. What has changed for the rural person, for the good? I can tell you it's only changed for the worse, because those guys live in fear. When the first year that we heard about the ZANU-PF strategy was Jambanja, we said, what is Jambanja? Shit, well, we soon found out what Jambanja was. And that's this intimidation thing of rural people is rife. You just have to look at what's happening in Eastern DRC. That's scary shit. I think they killed over 4,000 people when they went into Goma. But you don't hear anything about it. Then you've got some reformed convict that gets his neck squashed, and now that's a big deal. But don't worry about all these people dying. And I saw them. I think the clip was also in Eastern DRC, where I think I don't know if it was the M23 movement or what. They were killing people. They were beating them with weapons.
Well, I think I saw that. I know.
You know, come on, guys.
I know.
That's
there
not.
doesn't seem to be any end.
And nothing happens. Nothing
No.
happens.
Well, you see, the Congolese president has actually opened up to the Americans. Basically, he's saying to Trump, "Can't we do a minerals deal?"
Yeah, I saw that.
Like they're doing in Ukraine.
And he's looking. But you know why he's done that? Is because he shit scared the M23 and the Burundians are now getting involved, I believe, with the Rwandese, however you say that. And they're saying we are marching to the capital, to Shasha. And they're halfway there already. So it's scary, man. And you know, unfortunately, I think we need to wake up in the Western world only wants to keep Africa poor. Why? Because then they can get the minerals they want. They can export their surplus stock of food stock and stuff like that. We've got the ability here to turn Africa, and it's only a change in mindset, into like the utopia of the world.
Oh, Graham, I think about it a lot too, you know, and I think Zambia, because it's one of the few African countries where you do still have a working legal system where you can get a contract in force. The laws seem to be are applied, and I don't know, but I saw a judgment the other day in the Supreme Court upholding property rights. It was an action involving the Ndola City Council. And I read that and I thought, cheapers, that's really good to see, because right now in South Africa they're messing with property rights. Zimbabwe, we know what happened. Zambia, there you've got the highest court in the land saying that title deed is sacrosanct. If anybody builds on that property, it belongs to the landowner. And I really thought, cheapers, that's sending a really strong, and I hope people are watching, because I think that is the answer to Zambia is the private sector, making it private sector friendly and getting in lots more people like yourself to develop this country. And you don't need aid money. You can do it with enterprising.
You do it yourself. We've got the potential to do it ourselves. And the good thing that I like about politics here is if you criticize a politician, you give him an answer or a solution. In Zimbabwe, you'd immediately be construed as against the government. Yeah. Here, the guys listen and say, well, we don't know their wheels within wheels and what we do in agriculture, how it affects commerce and stuff like that. But they're wheels within wheels, and they will take time to explain to you, Graham, it can't work like this, but we can do this. So that is very encouraging. And, we've had some good leaders, and, our president, President Hakainde Hichilema, he's an accountant. He's a bean counter. So he knows 1 + 1 makes 2, not 3. And he knows the importance of getting this economy right. He knows, and his big focus is on getting our copper production up. And there's a dream of 3 million tons, which we feel is attainable, but I don't think in the time frame that he thinks. But certainly agriculture, I always go to, there's a Angone traditional ceremony in Chipata called the Nchwala, and we normally sponsor that. And when I came off after making my speech, and I went and gave HH a shirt and a hat saying, Your Excellency, from one farmer to another, he says, I've heard you. It's irrigation, isn't it? I said, yes, sir. Water's life. You can double crop. You can do everything. You can stop floods. You can control that water. And things are happening.
Oh, well, that's really good to hear, Graham. And it's nice to hear that you're on top of things and still growing, I've no doubt.
I don't know, Hannes, you're probably the same age as me, but you know that you got a lot more hair than me, as you can see. But this is a solar panel for a sex machine. You don't have to worry about that. But when you're getting old, I'll put that as a proviso, and you stop working, we as males are wired to be providers. And people who retire, even at our age or even earlier, they basically stagnate and almost die in their skins. So, you know, I've got little boys. Well, they're not little anymore. I'm the shortest oak in the family, by the way, now. So even the little oaks, you know, they will, like the one says to me, the youngest, at my 21st, I want this kind of watch. I said, no, I'll be dead by then. He said, no, you won't, Dad. It's only 6 years' time. So, you know, I've got to carry on working, and you know, I enjoy my horses, I enjoy my sport. Not that I play too much anymore, but you've got to stay active. Otherwise, you'll just die.
No, hats off to you, Graham. I really salute your efforts, and thank you very much for your time today. It's been a really interesting.
Yeah, well, hopefully I haven't waffled too much, and
not at all.
that you can make something out of it. But once again, I just want to reiterate, thank you, Zambia, for welcoming us.
Thank you, Graham. I really appreciate it.